Hello and welcome. This is Captain Tom, and yeah, you are on board the Silverwind. So welcome aboard. I am joined by my co-host and intergalactic robot friend Wilson. He'll be over there in the corner. He is the co-host and producer. So in these shows, he'll just be kind of more in the background. So, but with that, yeah, today we are going to be talking about Genesis chapter 23, and it's not going to be a long story, so I figured we would go somewhere new in our solar system today. So we're going to go ahead and go to Mercury. So yeah, let's go ahead and set that up real quick, make sure we can get there in one shot and nothing goes awry. Let's see here. I think we're just going to phase warp to it. That'll be the fastest and easiest way. Let's see here. That should work. All right, so Julian, hey, how's it going? It's going great, my friend. And yeah, it's been a minute. So we got the noise of the ship going on right now, but yeah, basically I've been out for a couple weeks now, and hey, look at that. It's beautiful. Here, we'll wait for this real quick. I mean, beautiful is a subjective term. It's a rocky planet. So yeah, let's see here. Let's get this locked into place. That should do the trick. So let's see here. I think we can kind of go back and forth here. Perfect. Okay, so we are here at Mercury. It's actually not a lot to look at, unfortunately. It kind of looks like our moon, and to be honest, it's just a little bit bigger than what our moon is. And it's very similar in a lot of ways. Now, of course, it's not a moon, it's a planet. It's the closest planet to the sun, but it's also the smallest planet. And interesting fact, it is the fastest planet. So it's named after, oh goodness, I'm going to get this people group wrong. I think it's the Romans mythology. It's named after god Mercury, who's the fastest of those gods. And this is the fastest planet. So I got a few facts over here for you guys. Let's see here. For speed, it goes nearly 29 miles per second. That's pretty dang fast. Of course, it has less time to travel around the sun, or less distance to travel around the sun because it's the closest. So a year on Mars, so one rotation on the sun, is just 88 days here on Earth. So it's kind of a pretty interesting place with that. But yeah, it's a rough, rocky planet. It does have a molten core. It has a metallic molten core, so I think iron, and so it creates a bit of a magnetic field around it. And then it has an exosphere, and so an exosphere is basically like an atmosphere if it was like really, really thin and just not a whole lot of it. So it doesn't have enough air on it to be considered an atmosphere, but it does have that exosphere. And because it doesn't have an atmosphere, or a proper one, the exosphere contains like oxygen, hydrogen, helium, potassium. These are the major ones they found on it. And sodium. And so, because it doesn't actually have a lot of air on it, the temperatures are very irregular. They spike really high and really low, as high as around 800 degrees Fahrenheit, and as low as about, I think it's around 200. Here, you know what? I think I lost it. About 250, negative 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, it's the temperatures vary greatly. Now, it's not the hottest planet. That metal goes to Venus. So Venus is the hottest one. That gets into like the upper limits of like 800 degrees Fahrenheit, like 860, 870 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's because it has an atmosphere with that runaway greenhouse effect. It's just full of carbon and traps in all that heat. So Mercury doesn't really trap in any heat. But there is something really interesting about Mercury. So I said that it has an exosphere. Well, because of how close it is to the sun, and the fact that it's, doesn't have a proper atmosphere to really block any of the solar radiation or solar winds, those things basically blast the planet Mercury, and should have, after about 4.5 billion years, which is estimated kind of in a secular, science, how long it's been around. For 4.5 billion years being subjected to kind of that solar radiation blasting the planet, there shouldn't be even an exosphere left. Like, there should be no molecules or air of any kind left on its surface. So it's a real mystery in how it could possibly have any kind of air on it whatsoever. But you know what, there is one kind of interesting theory. It has to do with this magnetic field and how it creates this magnetic tornado, which will bring in plasma that can possibly replenish its air. But then again, that's kind of a stretch. So in reality, it is much easier to explain from a a theological standpoint, is just to say that it was put there the way that it is, and it was just made that way. And it hasn't necessarily been there for 4.5 billion years. Perhaps it's only been there for a few thousand, which would explain why there's still an exosphere on the planet. So with that, let's go ahead and go back aft. We're going to go ahead and start with our story. And yeah, just jumping into it. Once again, it's going to be a very short story today, but it's very, very important for establishing something that, God has basically established with Abraham. So very important to the story. It will be referenced a lot and actually has some ramifications to this day. So with that, let's go ahead and I'll see you guys at the library room. All right, here we go. So let's bring it in closer here, Wilson. Thank you. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead, just jump right into the story. Now, basically, doing a little bit of recap on what was told before. So last time, Genesis 22, we had Abraham who dealt with a big test of faith. So he was told to sacrifice his son Isaac, the very son God promised that all of his descendants would come through, right? So he said, all of your descendants will come from Isaac. And then God tells him to sacrifice his son. And Abraham, without any understanding of how God would fulfill that prior promise, that Isaac would be the one that would give him, those descendants. Well, he was willing to be obedient to God, not complain, but the whole time he maintained his faith that everything would be okay at the end, even if he were to go through with the act, that somehow Isaac would still survive and still come down off that mountain with him. So he tells the servants that everything's going to be fine. He doesn't tell them what he's going to do or what God told him to do, but he even tells Isaac the same thing, that God would provide a sacrifice. He names the place that God provides. And there was this great moment of faith of not necessarily knowing how things are going to turn out, but trusting God nonetheless to fulfill his promises. So it's like a perfect story for the perfect example of what real faith looks like. And because of this, Abraham is considered the father of faith, right? And so really cool stuff. We're now going to move beyond that. And then we're kind of concluding now this era with Abraham and Sarah, and we're going to start moving into the next generation, especially in the next chapter. So right now it's kind of that transitionary period, but something important happens here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to, let's see here. I want to get, we're probably just going to read it in 4 chunks here. And then that's probably going to be or about 5 chunks here. And that's probably going to be the whole thing. So we'll take it a little slow at first. And yes, let's go ahead and jump right into the text here. When Sarah was 127 years old, she died at Kiriath Arba, now called Hebron, in the land of Canaan. There Abraham mourned and wept for her. Then, leaving her body, he said to the Hittite elders, "Here I am a stranger and a foreigner among you. Please sell me a piece of land so I can give my wife a proper burial." All right, 127 years. She lived a long time. And so she lived long enough to have Isaac and to, be able to properly raise him. And yeah, so God gave her a long life. And the Bible multiple times will point back to Sarah as an example of a godly woman, as an example of someone who was humble, who, was, just the example of a good person. Now, we've seen in the story that there are moments of weakness in her character as well as Abraham's, but it's kind of Abraham's poor leadership that put her in that bad position. So there's a whole issue between her and Hagar, and so that can be but once again, the Bible shows the complexities of humanity and their character and doesn't really shy away from that, which I think is what makes the stories really good. So now we have a situation where Sarah's passed away. Abraham mourns her. He's got to do something with her body. Now he's got to bury her. Now keep this in mind. He has been a foreigner in this land. He's not really someone who has really any claim to land. I mean, he can't just, he doesn't own any of the land that he's been staying on. He's just been, kind of roaming around and, being a nomad in a place that God promised would be the land of his descendants, that it's given him, going to be given to his descendants. So we gotta do something about the issue of needing a place to bury her. Now, right now, before this, Abraham's ancestral home is not this place, right? So his family is elsewhere. And so this right here changes that, right? So we've got, we'll go ahead and get to the next part. So the Hittites here brings these people up. The Hittites are kind of interesting because for some time, and historians discounted the idea that the Hittites were real people. They said, well, there's no archaeological evidence that the Hittites ever existed, so clearly this must have been made up. Well, over time, just like many things in the Bible, a secular historian approach has often been to, if there isn't any direct evidence for what's being said there, it's immediately counted as it must be fantasy, it must be invented. David's kingdom is a good example of this. Solomon's kingdom is a good example of this. And then, of course, the Hittites and other people groups like that. So, of course, evidence has been found for all of those to show that there are secular, evidence historically for the existence of these people through archaeology or texts from different empires referencing these people. Apparently, Egypt had a few different interactions with the Hittites. They were considered very powerful people, and they were basically right above Canaan. So you had Egypt that was below and kind of to the left. You're looking at a normal map from the Canaanites, and then just above the Canaanites was the Hittite Empire. So they had some land and some claim to land in Canaan, in this place specifically. And so this is who basically Abraham is trying to buy property from in order to bury Sarah. So let's go ahead and just kind of move forward with the story here and get into what happens with this whole interaction here. All right. Let's go to verse 9. Let's do that. Okay, the Hittites replied to Abraham, "Listen, my lord, you are an honored prince among us. Choose the finest of our tombs and bury her there. No one here will refuse to help you in this way." Then Abraham bowed low before the Hittites and said, "Since you are willing to help me in this way, be so kind as to ask Ephron, son of Zohar, to let me buy his cave at Machpelah, down at the end of his field. I will pay the full price in the presence of witnesses, so I will have a permanent burial place for my family." Okay, so first thing, he's considered an honored prince. Now, remember, Abraham is very famous. He is the one who defeated the kind of world-ending army, the first real World War I, or World War, I guess, at that time. And he's the one who defeated this army that was undefeatable in these crazy circumstances that, he shouldn't have been able to win. Wins it, gets a lot of fame. He gets a lot of wealth in general. So he's very, very blessed. People see that he's blessed. And oftentimes, if you're winning battles and you acquire a lot of wealth, people will look, especially at those times, people would say, "Hey, look, the Lord has blessed you. The Lord is with you." And so, that's why they're calling him an honored prince, right? So in that way, they're basically, now they're starting this off by offering to give him something for free. So one of the ideas behind this is that this was a tradition back then because people had honor. They wouldn't just accept things for free, typically, especially if they were wealthy and that sort of thing. And so if you offer it for free, it's just kind of like a nice way to open up business, right? They're going to deny the free thing and they're going to offer to pay for the full price. And then when they offer to pay for the full price, you give them the full price. And we'll get to that in a second. But you're not actually there to do any favors for them. You're just trying to do good business. And so it's just kind of a cordial way of having a business interaction in the ancient world. So they know he's going to deny just taking it for free. And so Abraham just wants the cave. Hey, could I just get the cave? It's very minimalistic. And yeah, so we'll see what their reply is for that. But this will establish once, he gets this land, it'll establish an ancestral homeland where, his children can look back on and say, hey, look, our descendants were buried in this land, the land of Canaan, the land that God promised Abraham and his descendants, right? So it ties them to that land in a very, important way. And by paying the full price, this would also be like a very legitimate transaction. No one could say, hey, Abraham, you didn't basically, get this land correctly or anything like that. To be no squabbling there. So he says he's willing to do it in front of witnesses and to pay the full price. So let's see what they have to say to that, and we'll continue through this ancient business deal right here. All right, so we're going to go through, it's verse 10, and we'll go through to 16. Ephron was sitting there among the others, and he answered Abraham as the others listened, speaking publicly before all the Hittite elders of the town. No, my lord, he said to Abraham, please listen to me. I will give you the field and the cave here in the presence of my people. I give it to you. Go and bury your dead. Abraham, well, I'll just start there. It's very short, so we might as well stop. So the man who Abraham is requesting the cave from, he's saying, no, don't take my cave. How about this? I'll give you the cave and the field, right? So there's probably some good reasons behind this. I mean, if you owned like someone's cave on their property, like how are you going to get to your cave? You would have to go through someone else's property to get to your cave, right? So he's just saying, just buy the whole field. So the surrounding, like I don't have to maintain your cave or keep up with the things around or anything. It won't be my responsibility. Let it be your responsibility. So he's just like, buy the whole thing. As a matter of fact, he can charge more if he's going to be selling the whole field. So once again, there's still this cordial kind of part of the interaction here. And that cordialness has to do with just, simply saying, hey, I'll give you the land and the cave for free 99. And so let's see what Abraham has to say to that. Abraham again bowed low before the citizens of the land, and he replied to Ephron as everyone listened. No, listen to me. I will buy it in front of you. Let me pay the full price for the field so I can bury my dead there. Ephron answered Abraham, my lord, please listen to me. The land is worth 400 pieces of silver. But what is that between friends? Go ahead and bury your dead. Let's see here. Right. Okay, so YouTube says it has an error here. Let's see this. I think we'll just soldier on forward here. We'll just soldier on. That's okay. Okay. So let's see. If I have to, I'll repost the the link here or the video. Okay, so Abraham is basically saying, listen, no, I won't take it for free. But yeah, so now he's kind of roped into buying the field now. So he's like, okay, I'll buy the field and the cave. And so Ephron says, hey, you know what? If you're going to pay full price for these things, that's 400 silver. And the way that people have calculated this for if this is a good deal or not, is a really bad deal for Abraham. Abraham is way, paying way too much for this property. But this is obviously kind of the point of this business interaction, is to try and, of course, the Hittites, Ephron here, he's trying to make as much money as he can. So he offers the big price, right? Probably expecting to haggle down from there, and you start big. And so 400 silver, which is way overpriced. And so far, Abraham has been very kind of lenient, like, he's just mourned the loss of his wife, and he doesn't seem to be very, argumentative, right? He's not giving any real pushback. The second that the land is offered as well, he's like, okay, fine, throw that in, right? So long as I can get the land in the cave to be able to bury my wife. And so yeah, let's see what he has to say right here to this exorbitantly high price that Ephron is offering him. Okay, so Abraham agreed to Ephron's price and paid the amount he had suggested, 400 pieces of silver weighed according to the market standard. The Hittite elders witnessed the transaction. So Abraham bought the plot of land belonging to Ephron at Machpelah near Mamre. This included the field itself, the cave that was in it, and all the surrounding trees. It was transferred to Abraham as his permanent possession in the presence of the Hittite elders at the city gate. Then Abraham buried his wife Sarah there in Canaan, in the cave at Machpelah, near Mamre, also called Hebron. So the field and the cave were transferred from the Hittites to Abraham for use as a permanent burial place. And that's the whole story right there. But so the significance of this. So Abraham, he pays for, the 400 silver, pays for the whole thing, and does this in front of witnesses. It's all completely legitimate transaction that's been done here. And at the end of this legitimate transaction, he's basically, now no longer a nomad. He now owns land in Canaan that he acquired not through bloodshed or by tricking anyone or anything like that. He acquired this land, a stake here to say, like, this is his property through, paying for it legitimately, a legitimate business interaction. And then, of course, the first thing he does with this land is he buries Sarah. And of course, it's going to keep coming up. This is the place where, Abraham and all of his recent descendants, they'll also be buried in this place. So it'll be, one of those things that the descendants of Abraham, both Abraham and I should say Isaac, right? Or you could say Israel, all of Israel can say, hey, look, this is the land of my ancestors. This is the land where my ancestors were buried, where they owned, they have a legitimate claim to property rights here, right? So that comes into play later. It's there's going to be this claim that it's not just this small plot of land, but all of Canaan is going to be a possession for Israel. And Israel's going to have to come in later and basically take this land. And we talked about that a little bit. The Canaanites get up to some really bad stuff, and God has essentially predestined that, hey, you guys are going to be destroyed and going to be replaced by the Israelites here. And so it starts off with a legitimate claim to that place. And that legitimate claim to that place is still part of the arguments and discussions today, having to deal with kind of that whole area of the world where there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on, and we don't need to get into it. But as far as the story, is concerned here, they do have a legitimate claim to, hey, this is where my descendants were buried, and so this is our home, right? And so it's a very short chapter, kind of sad. Sarah dies, had to happen eventually. Same will have to happen to Abraham eventually as well. But after that, we're going to get more into the life of Isaac. And I believe that's actually going to be a little bit of a love story. So so that's going to it'll be nice. It'll be fun. Hopefully, I think the YouTube is saying something about a connection problem. If anyone's on the chat will let me know if they were not able to, or they had a really bad connection, just let me know so I can kind of go back and maybe just repost the recorded video here. But yeah, anyways, aside from that, that's it for today. Like I said, very, very short, probably our shortest episode yet. But we get to hang out at Mercury here. And if you guys have any questions or anything like that as we head back to Earth, please let me know in the chat below and we'll have that discussion. Aside from that, we'll just kind of talk about some future projects and Friday shows as we transfer back to the farthest ship and head back to Earth. So I will see you guys at the bridge, pilot house. I don't know. It's one of those things. Wilson, what do we call it here? Bridge? All right. I'll see you guys at the bridge. But what if some people don't understand nautical? Okay, never mind. All right, so we got to turn around and let's hit that phase warp here. So let's go ahead, get us back, make sure we hit the right thing here. Let's see here. That should work. The operative term is should. As long as we don't fly into Mercury. All right, we'll be good. I have a feeling Mercury won't give way like that space station did. All right, all right. Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Let's go ahead. I think that should be it. Well, I didn't need it. We don't need to move the camera, Wilson. Let's bring the camera back up here. There we go. Perfect. All right, so yeah, some future projects that we have in the works here. So I've started a series with Journey to the West as a Friday show. Now, Friday shows aren't every Friday. We have to do a lot of plotting courses and going places in space, and it's a little bit more to prepare. And I try to do, make sure I do up everything I can with those episodes, so we can have a lot of fun with a nice little space adventure with that story. Still not sure how I'm going to completely break it all down, but I'm working my way through it and working on that. So, maybe doing like once a month kind of thing, getting to the next parts of Journey to the West and going through the whole thing. It's going to be a huge story to tackle. It's 100 chapters. Every chapter's got tons of stuff in it. So it's, finding a good way to break it up while still getting the details of the story, the highs and lows, and the feel for all that. So we have a good time with that. And yeah, I'm going to continue. Last few weeks, I was sick and I was doing a move on Earth, of course. Obviously not moving up here. But yeah, so had a lot of stuff going on, but I should be back on every Wednesday at this time. We'll continue going through Genesis and just, hanging out and having a good time with it. So if you know anyone who'd be interested in this, make sure you share the video with them. Hit that like if you haven't hit it. And if you haven't subscribed, we'd love to have you on board. And with that, let's go ahead and enjoy a nice outro. I got the song from our Friday show, so real banger. Check it out. The artist, link in the description for the music and that sort of thing. So be sure to check those people out. A lot of it comes from No Copyright Sounds on YouTube. They're really, really awesome. So with that, I'll see you guys next time.
In the sky, gazing far into the night, I raise my hand to the fire, but it's no use, 'cause you can't stop it from shining through. It's true, baby, let the light shine through. If you believe it's true, baby, won't you let the light shine through?